Looks like our Snake Eye player, Juan, is likely to go first.
It's weird. I've been saying this. I think maybe this is a hot take, but for Game 1 exclusively, I think if you're playing a Fire Mirror match, going second might be a little bit more ideal because you have access to those Charmers. You have access to just so much more that you can use because of the battle phase as well, that you end up being able to find a game shot more often than not because there's less tools in your, like Game 1, you don't know which card you're playing around, right? Are you going after the Droll and Lockbirds and the Nibirus, or are you trying to play around the Super Polymerizations, the Triple Tactics Talents? Like, you have to kind of really pick and choose your field, and until you have that information as to what your opponent's playing, it might not make the best board possible.
Well, speaking of information, after that bonfire was activated and slapping the Snake Eye Ash on the field, unfortunately its effect was negated by Effect Failure, and a beautiful copy of that.
Snake Eye Ash, when it gets hit with something along the lines of Infinite Impermanence or Effect Failure, it seems like it would really end the turn because there's not much you can do with it. You can't even use, well, I mean, I suppose you could use, but it would resolve without effect, the effect of Ash to send itself as well as another face-up card to summon a Snake Eye from deck. Not being able to access that effect as well is really costly, but at least when you're able to put up 2 bodies here, you can try to dig your way through, eventually get your way to a Charmer if your opponent has a graveyard, and get yourself to that Promethean Princess to bring back the Snake Eye Ash.
Definitely the card of the hour, and speaking of cards of the hour, it's great to see Magician Souls on the field, having sent that Diabellstar to the graveyard. She is a level 7 Dark Spellcaster with Dark Magician stats, so it does kind of work.
This is very interesting. We see the Magician Soul send the 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talents, which almost certainly means you have another one, because at the very least you would just activate it to draw 2 instead of just draw 1. So here we go.
Ah, there it is.
I probably just wants to take a look at the opponent's hand here.
I'm a big, user of the Forceful Sentry style effect, revealing the hand and putting something back. Whatever cards I'm going to draw, I'll probably see them later, but it's always nice to get a peek on what your opponent's hand is and maybe stop those starters. But it looks like we're going to draw instead.
Yeah, that's when you have to use the draw to, that feels like the desperation move, right? I feel like when you activate Triple Tactics Talents, especially in a format like this, it's very predominantly going to be taking your opponent's monster, removing a threat, as well as giving yourself a resource, or just looking at your opponent's hand to make sure you know how to map out the rest of your plays. But when you have to draw to, that means you don't know what you have going on for you, and I think that's exactly why Magician Souls was activated prior to the Triple Tactics Talents, because Juan didn't know what his resources were, and he didn't have exactly what he needed yet, so he's still digging. But hopefully those 2 cards got him to where he needs to go. We're going to find out as he links away that Link Karibo and that Snake Eye Ash, maybe into just an SP Little Knight to have along the way to either push back with a Flame Barge or hopefully not to pass on. There is that Little Knight, a fabulous Quarter Century rare.
Certainly gorgeous there, but I think you're right. The SP Little Knight definitely is a more defensive style play. Obviously, Link Karibo is good and has many ways to help you dodge your opponent's effects by sending those level 1 monsters to the graveyard before something resolves. But this turn isn't seeming as explosive as we know this deck can be. An SP Little Knight, a set card, and that's pass.
Didn't even opt to use its effect, going after the Effect Veiler in the opponent's graveyard, which you wouldn't really think is that relevant, but it is a spellcaster, and because the Charmers are so popular, Celine does seem some play, and getting a spellcaster out of your opponent's graveyard could prove useful.
Certainly could. Obviously, if you were able to bring that back, it can really get things moving. But Cameron, just pensively staring at his hand, figuring out what we're going to play first, and it looks like...
I just missed it. He actually banished his own Snake Eye Ash to block the Hida going after from his opponent's side. I think that's a pretty heads-up play as well.
It really is. Obviously, Hida the Fire Charmer is great because you can borrow those fire monsters, and it seems like swapping monsters across the board might be the way that these mirror matches go. It looks like that Forbidden Chalice is going to stop Snake Eye Ash, so we're not really going to resolve that card effect yet.
But I mean, just looking at Cameron's hand here, he sees it pretty much face up on the field. That's plenty of ways to keep going. He has the Diabellstar to just put that Poplar in rotation, but more so, like, he's probably just going to activate the Sanctuary first, just try to get a card on the field that he can give up for free, while also placing Fire King Island on the field. Fire King Island could destroy that Fire King Snake Eye Poplar in the hand, and because Garunix is already in the hand, you're able to just kind of start the entire Fire King engine because you do not have to go and grab that Garunix yourself in that moment. So you can add something along the lines of Fire King Arvada, use Garunix effect because a fire monster was destroyed, summon it, destroy Kirin, which is able to special summon from graveyard or hand, and put the Arvada on the field, which will then be able to protect yourself from any further plays that Juan has, especially that Little Knight that's staring him down.
Well, we saw earlier in the tournament how important Arvada on the field can be. It will even force your opponent to enter the battle phase just to attack over it, just to keep yourself from getting locked out of those precious card effects. But right now we are seeing Sanctuary go ahead and bring out Fire King Island, and Cameron is thinking about his next play from there.
Yeah, Juan has to choose if he wants to go after that Snake Eye Ash. Maybe in the situation that is the only fire monster that Cam has, will Juan take that gamble? Yeah, he's going to use the Little Knight, going to go after that Snake Eye Ash.
Just worried that it might be the only thing he has. Obviously don't want him to be able to search through that deck with the Fire King Island effect. But if he's got other cards, well, let's see.
Yeah, giving up the Poplar there, also quarter century.
Definitely, this would be the tournament. If you wanted to show up with some valuable cards and show off, this is the one.
Yeah, being able to grab that Arvada here, just like I predicted. The Garunix is going to be able to trigger in the hand, going to be able to destroy the Kirin, not going to be able to destroy anything with the Kirin, but it will be able to summon that Arvada from hand. And then you're free to basically go with your plays with the Diabellstar from that point.
So we're going to see Poplar go back to the Spell and Trap Zone. Kind of nice to see that mechanic again, since Crystal Beasts are really, I think, like the first cards that were showing up in the Spell and Trap Zone, but so many different decks do it now.
Yeah, I don't think you can quite call it crystallizing when you use the effect of a Snake Eyes, but I guess that's the closest thing we have.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Centurion, too. So just lots of different decks taking advantage of the fact that there's lots of zones on the field.
So you are now protected from something along the lines of Effect Veiler, which could be very powerful here. You know there's not, well, at least it's very unlikely for there to be an Infinite Impermanence because it would have been set along with the Forbidden Chalice at this point.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if you're going to use Infinite Impermanence, you could save it in the hand maybe to surprise your opponent, but then you wouldn't get that powerful effect if it was set. So I feel like it probably would have been set on the Chalice. Look at the face-down card, though. We're going to go ahead and flip over our original Sinful Spoils and go ahead and grab something from the deck.
I imagine because you already gone through your entire factoring engine, this is just going to be a Snake Eye Oak at this point.
Took a little look at the Poplar, but you're absolutely right. Here comes Snake Eye Oak.
You're going to be able to go after the Poplar in Graveyard, I imagine, because you have not used its effect yet. Given maybe you don't have any targets, yeah, just going to go ahead and grab that Snake Eye Ash that was banished off the Little Knight instead. Likely means that Poplar would not have a target to go after because the original Sinful Spoils has already been used.
Now, we've seen how strong this field can be from the Fire King version of the Snake Eye deck, but also how fragile it can be if you lose your Fire King Island. Again, if it's removed from the field, you're going to have all those cards destroyed. They like being destroyed, but you also like having a lot of monsters, too. Uh-oh.
And there is the Nibiru's, but the Arvada is still online here, so unless there is an additional effect failure or something, yeah, now Oak is just going to be able to send another monster, and let's see, there is 18 on the field. This 24, or sorry, it's 27 plus 12 from the Kirin.
Believe so, but we're not out of this duel yet.
You even have just a small stop. Your opponent has access to all the Charmers, they're able to play through your graveyard, and they have a battle phase. But now you have to play into every single post-side card.
Now, if you take a look at Cameron's hand, just because we can see from the overhead camera, lots of points of interaction. I think I saw Droll and Lockbird as well as maybe an Effect Veiler and a Poplar, so pretty decent start.
Yeah, there was, I believe, 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird, an Effect Veiler, and a way to play, so that seems like good enough for now. But we're leading off with Diabellstar, sending the Flame Bridge here. Not necessarily as costly in the pure Snake Eye strategy because you more than often play 2. But
True.
Yeah, Juan stopped cold from another Effect Veiler this time.
Oh, that Effect Veiler is putting in work. If that's the same Effect Veiler, you should be thanking it, Cameron. It's definitely putting its work in. But, oh, there's the Anti-Spell Fragrance.
With 0 spells in hand. But at least this Poplar was the only play starter here, so not going to be able to do enough at this point. He's going to be able to set the Sinful Spoils, but that's not going to really do anything to get him started. But Juan might still not have a play here. Okay, this is what I was worried about. Cameron opting to go after the Poplar here because it is his only way to start playing. But the cost of this is this puts a Poplar potentially in his grave if Juan has a way to remove it once it's able to put itself back in the Spell Trap Zone. If it is sent to the graveyard at any point, Juan can go after it with Hida and just start playing his own deck as well. But he will be stopped by his own anti-spell, so, you know, I wonder how much his anti-spell will hurt Juan before it helps him.
Well, he does have quick play spell cards like Forbidden Chalice, so maybe that's what his thinking pattern is that he's just going to, like, wait and use his spells later. But it is true that this is really going to slow Cameron down, and that's what make Anti-Spell Fragrance really powerful again. You know, when we have these formats that are mostly monster effects, yeah, you can include the Anti-Spell Fragrance in your side deck, but you may not see a lot of use out of it, and you may eventually rotate it out. But this is a spell-centric format, and it's going to continue to be in the future just because of how powerful those Fire King spells really are.
Now, we do see the copy of Infinite Impermanence in Cameron's hand here, and I wonder, yeah, so this is what I kind of expected from Cam. It's a bit of a bold move, right? If you assume that Infinite Impermanence set, it probably will be in the same column as the Anti-Spell Fragrance, but
I'm no magician, but I think he might have set it in the center column. More worried about the face-down card. It is true, though, that if he did set it in front of the Anti-Spell Fragrance, he could just negate a monster's effect on his own turn and start playing spells, but it depends. He might be more concerned about that face-down.
And look, we're going to see another Diabellstar. I wonder if he has to kind of get rid of his own anti-spell if he wants to play, right? And this is a play that you can easily predict in the situation that Juan is in. Cameron could see that he's not going to be able to play without getting rid of his own anti-spell, so he doesn't have to really worry about it. So he could have put the Infinite Impermanence just blocking that other spell and trap that Juan has. Yep, and that's exactly what happened.
So he is going for the face down there, saying no to Diabellstar, and also Master Duel fans can probably imagine the bubbles on the screen crossing the field.
I mean, if it stopped him one turn, it probably stops him again. He only had one draw to get out of it. But now he has access to Dracosack.
Absolutely. 2 rank 7, or 2 level 7s combined. But I don't think we're opening up the overlay network. Looks like we're just going to go into the battle phase, attacking.
Yep, you're going to go ahead and make sure to use the Poplar. They're not taking any risks of a fire monster coming down.
It is true that Hida, the Fire Channeler, has never been better. All these different Link monsters. We saw that before, you know, when Dark was around. It was a great way to get out Destiny, Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer. But now with everybody playing very strong fire decks, there's a new Fire Charmer in town.
I mean, it goes to show that both Hida and Dark are very, very popular. I think it's a near staple in all of these Fire extra decks because Diabellstar is a Dark, and that's just the same thing, essentially.
Well, it'll be wild to see with all the Artemises, Selines, and Effect Fillers running around if people start using Lena as well.
Eventually, the whole extra deck is just Charmers and Celine.
Working as intended, but looks like Cameron's going to go ahead and get into things. Looks like another Joel and Lockbird appearing.
Oh, it looks like he drew a Fire King Avatar Kirin, actually, which is fairly useful with the Arvada. He's able to just at least have a live target for the Kirin if it ever comes up.
Oh, he's doing the traditional hand shuffling, keeping those cards randomized so his opponent doesn't know which is the card he just drew. It's always a really great thing to do, and obviously keeps the game fair and fun. But we're going to go ahead and flip that over and send the Snake Eye Poplar to the grave to maybe search something or not. Let's see what this face down card is.
It looks like it's a Crossout Designator going to banish his own copy of Original Sinful Spoils here. Very costly if you don't play a second copy, because the only way to really put it back is going to be Wanted, which you currently do not have access to.
However, with strong monsters on the field, locking your opponent out of doing anything when you've seen them have several flustered turns back-to-back, it might be the only way for him to just basically battle phase again, get rid of that Arvada, and then start his own turn.
Not really a whole lot you can do in this position. I wonder if he ever just activates the Kirin to destroy the, just to clear one of the Diabellstars, right? And it puts the Arvada back on the field, but the Arvada still won't be able to do anything without the Kirin in hand, so he probably just has to preserve it as is and just pass turn again.
I gotta say, it is nice to see Crossout Designator again. It's certainly a powerful card and doesn't always see play in formats, but right now, with so many powerful cards that activate from the hand that you can Crossout Designate, and the possibility of playing against another popular deck, it's probably a good idea, but play passes right back over to Juan, and he draws first turn.
Yeah, we definitely seen a lot more popularity for Crossout Designator because of how much engine it hits, and I think that's usually when Crossout becomes more playable. Right? When you're just going after those points of interaction from hand, it doesn't seem like it's doing that much because there's not always that much consistency in what everyone's playing. I mean, you can tell Infinite Impermanence is going to be popular, Ash Blossom is going to be popular, Nibiru is going to be popular, but sometimes people play wide skew of those points because, you know, there's a lot more available. But when you're able to go after cards that have to be played because they're part of the engine, like Snake Eye Ash or the original Sinful Spoils like this, or just even Bonfire, it can do so much more.
Oh, no, it looks like we do have another battle phase. Get rid of Arvada pass turn, just setting a single card and letting it go back over. I do see a Bonfire, so it's time to go back. Oh, no, that's not Bonfire. Okay.
We got the Wanted here.
There it is, yeah.
Wanted's very solid here, because at least it puts up the Diabellstar. You already have the card face up on the field, and because you have the original Sinful Spoils in the graveyard, you're able to put it back, making it live again. It might be one of the best draws you could have at the moment.
It's definitely Cameron's way into the duel. Obviously, it's great to have all those points of interaction in the hand, but if your opponent isn't really triggering them, right, by doing those plays that meet those conditions, you don't really go, oh my goodness, it's another Crossout Designator. Hold the phone.
Yeah, and Crossout Designator does negate the entire effect of Wanted for the turn, so he's not going to be able to use its effect in the graveyard either. Or, I mean, I suppose he could attempt to try to put back the original Sinful Spoils and get that additional draw. A pretty strong interaction here, but I think Juan would have much rather just drawn a playable card just to, like, get his play started. But eventually, Cam at 500, I didn't even look over there, 500 life points.
Those Diabellstars are big. 2 Dark Magician-sized monsters can't be wrong, but you're absolutely right. The Crossout Designator, while it is keeping Cameron out of the duel, it's true that this duel may already have been over if Juan was able to just draw another powerful card to get in. It's kind of a pattern we've seen, right? In round 1, there was also just a lot of ways to say no to your opponent, but no way to get into the game, and that's what we're seeing out of Juan both in Duel 1 and Duel 2 of this game.
Looks like Cam is opting to use the effect of Wonder. Am I missing what Cross-Eyed Designator does? Does it actually not stop the second effect as well?
It should. Let's take a look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron here so we can make sure that we have the correct text. Even the judges taking a look at the card just to make sure that we know what it does. Again, declare one card name, banish one of the declared card from your main deck, and if you do, negate its effects as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of cards with the same name. So you can absolutely banish that from the graveyard.
Okay, so I have to try to read that again to try to perfectly understand it.
Because, yeah, it's declare one card name, banish one of the declared cards, and if you do, negate its effects, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of cards with the same name.
Which applies to cards that were already on the field, but I believe it still would negate all of those cards' effects.
It should, but it does look like you can see those red stripes. Head judge just making sure, again, these are some of the hardest working judges in the entire program, people who have worked at the World Championship and, well, even back to your locals and there again. So we're just making sure that this gets clarified so that everybody knows exactly how this works.
Yeah, okay, that's how I assumed it worked. The second phrasing on it, just to clarify that it would also stop effects that are still already face up on the field. But basically, if you just make this easy for everyone else. If you activate Cross-Eyed Designator on a card, that card's effects for the turn are invalid.
So the short version is no.
And that is enough. There's no way for Cam to block out. We've seen both players be stopped very quickly from a single point of interaction along the lines of Infinite Permanence or Effect Veiler. But I don't think it's going to be as simple looking at this hand from Cameron. We have the leading off Snake Eye Ash, but there's also a 1-for-1 in his hand to extend further. But it looks like Juan didn't even have anything to stop the Ash this time, so already back against the wall.
Definitely. I mean, unless he has some sort of Nibiru, the Primal Being, in his hand, you probably would have done some stuff here. And it looks like we're going straight to the special summon there, so there may not even be a Droll and Lockbird in his hand either. Juan's hand just face down the field, not picking it up, just kind of watching these plays happen.
I mean, we do know Juan does play a lot of the spell cards and try to maybe focus down on interacting with the field even after the fact. But it looks like he has the strong hand going for the Divine Temple himself in the Fire King strategy. This has been very popular lately.
Well, it's a great card. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of synergy and crossover between these two decks. And historically, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always been about that. I mean, I can remember ages when Gravekeepers and Monarchs were put together, and we were like, oh, that is genius. And in the same way, having the Fire Kings and Sinful Spoils work together, I mean, it is working as intended.
We're going to now use the Snake Eye Ash, getting rid of the Oak to go ahead and summon the Flamebridge here. Divine Temple just adding additional uses for the Snake Eye cards, being able to not necessarily give away cards that actually cost you anything, but also generating the Oak in the graveyard, which is going to be an additional body once this Flamebridge happens to leave the field, which looks like right now.
Flamebridge is just such a powerful monster. I remember when it first came out, maybe people were like not sure about it, but it's obviously become a staple effectively in all of these different decks.
Interestingly, going for the Sunlight Wolf already, Flamebridge effect is going to be able to summon out 2 of those level 1 fires from the graveyard, opting to go for that Oak as well as Snake Eye Ash. Oak is going to be able to trigger here. Yep, Poplar is going to go back on the field. This might be an easy time to nib because the Flamebridge is already used, but you still have to deal with a likely original Sinful Spoils from the hand, because just because you search the Divine Temple doesn't mean you don't already have the other spell.
No, you're absolutely right. Looks like here it comes.
Yep.
There we go. Smashing down onto the field. Nibiru, the Primal Being, is going to go ahead and remove all these monsters from the field, contributing them off. And where are we going to put that token?
Poplar has not been used yet, so Poplar would be able to put itself, or any, rather, fire monster from the graveyard back onto the field. Oh, it looks like it did on the Flamebridge. Ah, I see. And the Divine Temple is going to be able to push it up because the Nibiru was used. This is what I mentioned earlier, the Snake Eye strategy to play around Nibiru. And now he's free to just start activating. Just going to go directly after the hand.
Okay. So now we get to see, looks like original Sinful Spoils, Snake Eye. We've also got Triple Tactics Talent, which is going to go back to the deck.
Yep, he has plenty of room to be able to play, to be able to stop the engine. Just wants to take off those additional factors here. Talent is going to be one of the easiest ones to be able to crack the board. Just going to go ahead and remove that factor.
We also did see a Flamberge in the hand there, but I don't know if it's going to be able to push too hard considering what's on the field. Cameron considering.
special?
Oh,
Sure.
there's the Diabellstar. That's how you're going to get access to your spell here.
So really the turn's just begun for Cameron, right? Well, Nibiru set the progress back. There's certainly a lot of different things you can do from here on out.
I think at this point you are going to be able to resolve the entirety of the rest of your combo.
Well, Juan's got a great poker face, right? We didn't think he had anything in his hand, but it did seem like the Nibiru came right at the right time. So maybe there is something else. I don't think Droll and Lockbird is likely. We probably would have seen that a little earlier, but here comes our original Simple Spoil sending Diabellstar.
I mean, we know Juan doesn't have anything left. He got his hand taken away.
True, true.
There's the Ponix. Ponix is going to be able to add the Sanctuary, go ahead and add the island, assuming none of those are already in the hand. If there's the Sanctuary, going to be able to place that Fire King Island on the field. Cam thinking through what else he has to do, because usually you have an idea of what the combo looks like at this point, but now, because he knows the exact cards in Juan's hand, he can make a field that perfectly counters every single one of those cards, and I think that's what he's looking for right now.
Definitely a great position to be in when you know what your opponent has. You can basically figure out a strategy that counters every single thing. And so really the only surprise is going to be whatever card Juan draws. And given, you know, how limited his hand is right now and doesn't have any follow-up from the triple tactic shell unless he just draws it back, there's not really going to be a great jump start into this duel since Cameron has the ability to just basically make whatever premium package. It's a custom field.
I think Tactics Poly is the card that Juan needs to draw. Maybe Cosmic Cyclone because the Fire King Island is most likely going to remain on the field. It has to be one of those power spells, right? I don't think Engine gets you there anymore. I think you need to draw those cards that are in addition to your typical strategy and really focus on cracking Cameron's board.
Sure.
Now going to go ahead and say goodbye to Flamberge here to grab ourselves a Fire King from the deck.
Flamer's already used, so not going to be able to trigger again. I wonder, since the Sunlight Wolf is also used, I wonder if he's going to go for Kieran or Arvada here. It looks like
Arvada would feel pretty good because then you're not worried about any monster effects that your opponent's dropping down.
Just wondering, because he doesn't actually have to worry about them this turn, how useful is the Arvada on the following turn? He's probably going to be able to end on Appaloosa knowing that the Triple Tactics Talents is not there. He's going to focus on getting the Kieran. He can summon back the Sunlight Wolf from the graveyard with the effect of Promethean Princess in a zone that would be able to be pointed to later, like just right under the extra monster zone, I imagine, and be able to add back that Kieran, just getting him just more additional removal looking into Juan's hand.
Well, speaking of looking into hands, take a look at the extra deck. Looks like the monster of the hour is here. It's the Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flame. Such a powerful card.
Opting to not go for that, going to just put the Flamers back on the field, going to be able to put the IP in the back row.
Obviously, Flamberge has been very powerful, whether you're using the variant that runs Formula Synchron or IP Masquerena. Being able to bring out one of those smaller monsters that has a quick effect to perform either a Link Summon or Synchro Summon during your opponent's turn gives you just additional ways to interact with whatever they throw out.
It looks like we're going to be able to link away the Promethean Princess here. Still locked into fires until this Link Summon is conducted, so likely going into that Amblo Whale.
Amblo Whale has been just such a powerful card. It was good before, but it's great now considering the fire interactions back and forth. And the fact that now you also have the Promethean Princess in the graveyard active, right? Being able to destroy a fire monster and then a monster or card on your opponent's side of the field. Yep. So powerful and really showing why it earned that spot on the playmats that have recently been printed.
Stand by.
He could have opted to make the World Sea Dragons Atlantis with the Amblo Whale just to make sure he doesn't randomly lose to a top deck super polymerization. But it doesn't look like Juan has any of that to lead off with. He's going to go into the main phase, normal summon Snake Eye Ash. That is going to resolve. We'll see how far he's able to get before we're going to start activating all those effects in the graveyard.
No, if you're cheering for pure Snake Eye in this duel, at least, this is your last chance. So Juan, make them proud wherever they are.
Poplar is going to be able to activate its effect right now, just attempting to summon itself from the graveyard. Potentially going to be using the Flame Bridge here to just put the IP Masquerena on the field. Yep, looks like that's what Cam's going to do.
Sure.
Definitely the time here. That way, right before your opponent gets anything set up, you can have IP Masquerena. Go ahead and perform that Link Summon on the turn and figure out what it is you're going to do against them. But Poplar's hitting Juan's field and going ahead and activating its effect.
So this might be the moment that Cameron wants to use the effect of Promethean Princess, going after a fire monster on his side of the field as well as a monster on Juan's side of the field. And he would be able to now chain the IP Masquerena to make sure to make a non-fire monster before that Promethean Princess resolves. So I think that might be what Cameron's looking for right now, but he doesn't necessarily have to, because Princess, once it's going to be able to hit the field, you could just go and summon the Garunix. The Garunix set itself up, and if you had access to Arvada elsewhere, you're able to get rid of the Princess that way, or if you just have another Karen in hand, that's another way to just easily get rid of the Princess and use the IP Masquerena later.
I'm going to do a quick little shuffle and cut here and see what comes up next. Now, obviously, it's good to have added that card to your hand, but it just doesn't quite feel strong enough with the threat of IP Masquerena, right? There's a lot of different monsters you could jump into, and you still do have the Promethean Princess kind of lurking in the graveyard.
Yeah, we're looking for as many extenders as possible here, because you want to take advantage of those Charmers to just use your opponent's graveyard to climb up into your own Princess, being able to just go from a Link 1, like just 2 bodies into a Link 2 into a Link 3 very quickly, while also generating value because your opponent is likely using all the same cards you are.
Well, looks like we're going to use SP Little Knight's effect to go ahead and banish the Poplar, and now we're going ahead and searching out some little fire monsters, level 1s each, from Flamberger's effect in the graveyard.
Looks like we're going to go after the Oak as well as the Ash, not only getting them out of his graveyard, but being able to use their effects to generate even more value here. Ash is going to be able to search. I'd imagine Oak has the option to special summon or add back to hand. He might be choosing to add Ponix back to his hand here.
Yeah, that's fine.
He is.
Yep, putting it back in his hand rather than special summoning it. This is an extra layer of protection, because if your field gets wiped, the Ponix will be able to trigger in hand to special summon itself. So just keeping yourself alive as much as possible, which is what you want to do in this position. You just want to see another turn. The only way you lose this game is if you lose right now.
So Ash and
Now Juan
Ponix,
is checking the graveyard, might be looking for all the different types of things in there, right? Certainly a lot of Link monsters that love jumping out of the graveyard as a little jump scare. Cameron's showing it off as well for the fans, but looks like we're going back to the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye.
Was that had to be the card that was drawn, because I don't think Cam knew about that card yet, which gives Cameron perfect information now.
Use SP.
Cameron activating the effect of SP Little Knight. Of course, since the card effect is activated, you're going to pick 2 cards. And it looks like we're going to say goodbye to Ash and SP Little Knight until the end of the turn. Unless... No, okay. Juan might have activated a card from the hand there, but decided not to do anything further.
Yep, removing the Ash is very important here, because it would have been an immediate threat, being able to send either the card that was put in the back with the Divine Temple or the Divine Temple itself, and immediately summon something along the lines of Flamebirds or any other Snake Eye monster from the deck. Just going to be able to remove that option, or at least push it back a little bit further, so Juan has to commit even more resources before he's able to get that far.
Well, he's going to get something, so really, you know, it's not to put the pressure on Juan or anything, but it's just true that you're staring down so many cards and so much setup, and you know your opponent has what you have, so this is all about grit and determination. Obviously, he's an ultimate duelist for a reason, but it looks like the deck may be stacked against him, so he'll have to make his choices carefully.
Going to just be another copy of Snake Eye Ash here. I think he wants to leave the Snake Eye Oak in the deck, and you don't really want to get rid of the Flamebridge at this point. Those are monsters you want to summon from the deck. This makes a lot of sense. It's going to just be likely used for free fodder. There is that Sinful Spoils that was added off the Poplar earlier this turn. He's going to be able to send either the Ash or the Temple. I'm probably going to go after the Ash. Keep in mind, Divine Temple is very similar to Flamebridge, where it can go from both sides. So if at any point there is a monster pushed back on Cameron's side, the Divine Temple could trigger when Cameron summons a monster to summon that monster to Juan's side of the field. So he actually wants to keep it on the field, just in case that does come up.
Again, this is going to be a fun format with all these borrowing cards. Do hear time on the round, but remember that's only for the main tournament. The featured match has its own separate clock. Sometimes that clock's going to be updated too, because there may be a time extension or communication from the judges with the team, so don't worry if time gets added. We're just making sure it's straight.
Thinking, okay. I'll target Banish Snake Eye Ash.
Going after the Ash that was banished off of the SP Little Knight here, this makes it a little bit harder for Cameron to remove both, because both of these monsters are able to use the Temple to try to summon another monster from the deck. So Cameron's goal is to try to remove both of them as quickly as he can, but I don't know if he will be able to that easily.
Well, there was a special summon monster, so technically the Promethean Princess could jump into action here.
Yeah, I guess Princess and Kieran would remove these monsters very quickly, but Juan put himself in a position for that to happen, so hopefully he has some kind of answer for it.
It is true that he may have set up Cameron specifically for this, so whatever other cards he may have in his hand, that's when he jumps in the duel.
I do believe the last card in his hand is that Diabellstar, right? That we knew from the tactics? Which I believe Cam should know that too.
Targeting
So this puts him in a position where he should be mostly fine. Because now that the Sinful Spoils is used as well, there's not really much a lone Diabellstar can do.
So we are going to see the Promethean Princess, though.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hesitant to put it in the graveyard. Hard to believe it, but it is
effective
true.
moves.
Promethean Princess is back in action.
And that's going to be able to trigger the Grunix. A fire monster was in fact destroyed.
Sure.
Grunix going to summon itself out in defense mode, just in case.
Yep.
Hey, you never know. Every life point counts, especially since Cameron lost quite a few. This is a fresh set of duels, so we're taking a look at Promethean Princess. I mean, it's just such an excellent monster. I want a Promethean Princess for everything, right? Give me one for wind, water.
I personally do not think Light and Dark deserve one. But
They are some of historically the most powerful archetypes, but this is definitely fire time.
yeah, I think, like, you know, Fire felt underappreciated in previous years, and we can no longer say that.
Yes, anybody who thinks that that is not one of the strongest attributes. There's plenty of great attributes, right? We got to see Zealantis, but right now it's a fire field.
You're good. You guys can.
Yep, and that is a concession
your
from
fault.
Juan there.
I
Cameron
was
going to be able to
hoping it
take it.
wasn't
That's
Tyrion.
used up every single... Oh, it was Flame Burst,
Tyrion
not...
popped out.